Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're digging into the blueprint of a modern marvel, Singapore. We're going to explore this really powerful, maybe even surprising, legal tool that allowed it to transform from just a tiny island into a global giant.
So have you ever wondered, how did a tiny island with almost no natural resources build a world-class city? It's a question that keeps economists and city planners up at night. I mean, how do you house millions of people, build incredible infrastructure, and create a booming economy on such a small piece of land? Well, a huge piece of that puzzle is found in a place you probably wouldn't think to look first. It's land law.
Okay, so it all started with this one core idea. The state owns all the land. And I mean all of it. This isn't just a small detail, it's the absolute bedrock. Everything, the entire system of property, of national development, was built on top of this single concept. It shaped every single road, building, and park you see on the island today.
All right, to really get how modern Singapore works, we've got to rewind a bit. Because the interesting thing is, this land system wasn't invented from scratch. Nope, it was actually an inheritance, and from a pretty surprising place, the British Empire.
And this timeline, it's pretty wild when you look at it. That core idea of the state owning everything, it's actually an Old English feudal concept, going all the way back to 1826 when the British brought their laws over. But here's the clever part. After independence in 1965, Singapore's new leaders looked at this old model and saw its potential. They made a really critical decision. Instead of creating a constitutional right to property, they decided to adapt this system for their own needs, prioritizing collective development for the entire nation.
So what does this actually mean for people? Well, here's the key takeaway. When you buy property in Singapore, you're not really buying the physical dirt and rock forever. Instead, you're buying what's called an estate. Think of it like a bundle of rights to use that land for a set amount of time, usually 99 years. The ultimate owner, the landlord, if you will, is always the state.
Okay, so now you've got this new government with total control over all the land. You can imagine that's an incredibly powerful tool to have in your toolbox. It meant they could strategically plan and pull off the huge development projects they needed to build a modern nation from the ground up.
And the key that really unlocked all that rapid development was this: the Land Acquisition Act of 1966. This law was basically the engine of change. It gave the government the power to take over private land for public use. And we're not just talking about roads and pipes here. This was the mechanism that let them build industrial parks, schools, and maybe most importantly, the massive public housing program that Singapore is famous for.
But how did they pay for it all? This is where it gets really interesting, and you can see how the policy evolved over time. Before 2007, back in the early, pretty cash-strapped days, the government capped compensation at the land's 1973 market value. This kept costs super low. But as Singapore got richer, they realized that wasn't quite fair. So in 2007, they changed the law to pay the current market value. It was a major shift, finding a new balance between the needs of the nation and being fair to landowners.
And the result of all that? Just look at this number. 80%. That's right, 80% of Singapore's residents live in public housing built by the Housing and Development Board, or HDB. It's just a staggering figure, and it shows you the incredible scale and success of the program, a success that, honestly, would have been impossible without the state's power to get and develop land so efficiently.
Okay, let's bring this down to a personal level. What does this all mean for you if you're looking for a place to live in Singapore? What are your actual options, and what are the pros and cons of each?
This table lays it out pretty clearly. You've got HDB flats. They're the backbone of the whole system. They're subsidized, which is great, but they come with strings attached. Things like a minimum time you have to live there, and even ethnic quotas to encourage integration. Then there are executive condos, which are kind of a hybrid. They start out with rules, but after 10 years, they become fully private. And finally, you have private property. More freedom for sure, but also a much bigger price tag. And it's the main option for foreigners.
Right, so you've got all these different types of ownership, millions of transactions, and it all flows back to the state. So you have to wonder, how do you make sure a system like that is completely secure and trustworthy? You need an unbreakable rulebook. How does Singapore pull it off? Well, the answer is something called the Torrens system, which they actually brought over from Australia. It's a world-class land registration system. And the core idea is simple but powerful. The register itself is the ultimate proof of who owns what. It's so good, in fact, that a top English law professor called it one of the better variants to be found anywhere in the common law world. That's high praise. And here's the real magic of it.
The state doesn't just own the land, it guarantees the title. That government-run register isn't just a record book, it's the absolute final word. What it says goes. It's the legal truth. This gives property owners an incredible amount of security and certainty.
But think about it. In a super high-density city like Singapore, most people aren't living on their own plot of land. They're living in high-rise buildings. So how do you own an apartment on the 20th floor? This is where another brilliant legal idea comes in, the strata title. It was a total game changer. It lets you individually own your own unit or space, while also having shared ownership of all the common stuff, like the pool, the lifts, and the lobby.
So, how is all that shared stuff managed? It's actually pretty structured. When a building is completed, a legal body called a management corporation, or MC, is automatically formed. It's basically made up of all the owners. Everybody chips in some money, and the MC takes care of maintaining the pools, the gyms, the gardens, the whole shebang. It's what makes high-density living work so smoothly.
Okay, so we've covered the history, the policies, the legal framework. Let's put it all together. What does this look like in practice, right now, if you're actually trying to buy or sell a place in Singapore?
Well, the whole modern process is designed for two things, security and efficiency. It's a digital-first system. Almost everything is done electronically through a system called STARS. This makes everything super fast and transparent. And remember that government guarantee? Well, it's not just an empty promise. It's backed by a real assurance fund. So in the rare case that the system messes up, there's money set aside to compensate anyone who's affected.
And you don't have to take my word for it. The results really do speak for themselves. Just look at this World Bank chart. It shows Singapore's ranking for registering property has been steadily climbing. They went from 36th up to 21st in just a few years. It just goes to show that this is a system that isn't just strong. It's one they are constantly tweaking and improving.
So what's the big takeaway here? Singapore's land law is this incredible blueprint for control and efficiency. By solving its own unique land puzzle, the country literally built its future on solid ground. In the end, it's all about a powerful trade-off. Individual land rights are exchanged for collective stability, super-fast development, and rock-solid security. It's a model that has clearly worked for them, and it definitely begs the question, is this a model for the cities of the future?